The ultimatum. The year 2294 marked humanity's proudest achievement. After 2 centuries of reaching beyond Earth's atmosphere, humans had finally claimed their place among the stars. 15 colonies thrived across 3 star systems, each one a testament to human determination and ingenuity. The Mars settlements had grown into sprawling cities beneath protective domes. The mining operations on Europa extracted resources that fueled expansion. The agricultural worlds of Alpha Centauri fed millions. It was a golden age of exploration and growth. The United Earth Federation governed this expanding civilization with careful balance. Representatives from every nation and colony met regularly to discuss policies and resolve disputes. Wars between human factions had become historical curiosities. People understood that survival in the harsh vacuum of space required cooperation. Trade routes connected the scattered human worlds, carrying goods and cultural exchange. Scientists shared discoveries freely. Artists created works that blended traditions from 100 different backgrounds. Humanity had learned to speak with one voice while celebrating many cultures. Captain David Morrison stood on the observation deck of Space Station Delta 7 and watched the stars with quiet satisfaction. He was 52 years old, with gray hair and the weathered face of someone who had spent decades in space. As the station commander, he had overseen countless diplomatic meetings and trade negotiations. Delta 7 served as humanity's primary contact point with the few alien species they had encountered. Most of these meetings had been cordial exchanges of information and small trade agreements. Nothing prepared him for what was about to arrive. The sensors detected them 3 hours before they appeared. Massive energy signatures emerging from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Morrison's crew counted 47 vessels, each one larger than anything humans had ever constructed. The ships moved with perfect synchronization, forming a pattern that seemed designed to intimidate through sheer visual power. Morrison felt his stomach tighten. This was not a friendly visit. A communication request came through on standard frequencies. Morrison accepted it and found himself looking at something that defied easy description. The being on the screen appeared to be made of living crystal, its body constantly shifting between different geometric patterns. Colors flowed through its translucent form like oil on water. When it spoke, the words came through a translation device that rendered its voice as cold and precise. "I am Overseer Draxian of the Galactic Commerce Authority. We have come to discuss your species' integration into the established economic order." The crystalline being paused, and Morrison could have sworn he saw something like amusement in its shifting patterns. "This discussion is not optional." Within 6 hours, a full delegation had arrived at Delta 7. Overseer Draxian led a group of representatives from 6 different species. There was a being that looked like animated smoke, constantly shifting and reforming. Another resembled a massive insect with too many legs and eyes that glowed with inner light. A third appeared almost human, but with skin that rippled like water. Each one carried themselves with the confidence of absolute authority. Dr. Keiko Tanaka arrived from Earth to lead the human negotiating team. She was a brilliant diplomat who had resolved dozens of interplanetary disputes. At 45, she possessed a sharp mind and a calm demeanor that concealed deep reserves of strength. Beside her stood Professor James Whitmore, humanity's leading expert on alien cultures, and General Maria Rodriguez, commander of the United Earth Fleet. Together, they represented humanity's best hope of navigating whatever was about to unfold. The meeting took place in Delta 7's largest conference chamber. Overseer Draxian did not waste time with pleasantries. A holographic display materialized in the center of the room, filled with text in dozens of languages. The translation into English appeared automatically. "These are the standard integration protocols," Draxian explained. His crystalline form pulsed with each word. "Every species that achieves faster-than-light travel must accept these terms. They have been in place for 50,000 years. Over 400 civilizations have integrated successfully. You will be no different." Dr. Tanaka read the terms with growing disbelief. Professor Whitmore's face went pale. General Rodriguez's jaw clenched tight. The demands were staggering in their audacity. Humanity would surrender 85% of all goods produced by their colonies. Every shipment of minerals, every agricultural harvest. Every manufactured product would be taxed at this rate. The resources would flow to the Galactic Commerce Authority's central distribution network. In return, humanity would receive fair market value determined by GCA assessors. All human technology would be shared with the GCA immediately and without restriction. However, the GCA would not be required to share anything in return. Humanity would receive access to appropriate alien technologies only when the GCA determined they were ready. The United Earth Fleet would be restricted to exactly 150 vessels. These ships could be used only for internal security and local system defense. Any expansion beyond this limit would be considered an act of aggression against the galactic order. The GCA would establish monitoring stations on every human world. These stations would be sovereign GCA territory, immune to local laws. Their personnel would observe and report on human activities to ensure compliance with all regulations. Finally, humanity would pay an immediate entry fee of 5 trillion universal credits. This amount represented approximately 4 years of total economic output from all human colonies combined. The payment would be due within 90 days. These terms are generous, Overseer Draxian said. His tone suggested he genuinely believed this. We recognize that humanity is young and relatively poor by galactic standards. More established species pay far higher rates. We are showing mercy because you do not yet understand how the galaxy operates. Dr. Tanaka kept her voice steady. May I ask what happens if a species declines these terms? The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees. Draxian's crystalline body shifted to darker hues. That question has not been relevant for 20,000 years. Every species accepts because the alternative is correction. Our enforcement fleets would dismantle your infrastructure. Your colonies would be evacuated. Your people would be scattered across the galaxy as laborers for species that did cooperate. Your civilization would cease to exist as an independent entity. He leaned forward, and the lights seemed to dim around him. But such measures are never necessary. Every species eventually understands reality. You have 90 days to formalize your acceptance. Use this time to explain the situation to your people. Help them understand that this is not negotiation. This is simply how the universe works. The strong set terms. The weak accept them. This has always been true. Professor Whitmore spoke for the first time, his voice tight with controlled anger. You're describing extortion. Slavery dressed up in bureaucratic language. We describe efficient resource allocation, Draxian replied. The GCA has maintained galactic stability for 50 millennia. We prevent wars. We manage trade. We ensure that dangerous technologies do not proliferate. All of this requires resources. Newer species contribute according to their capacity. Eventually, as you develop and prove yourselves worthy, your rates may be reduced. Some species have achieved tribute reductions of up to 10% after 10,000 years of loyal service. General Rodriguez could no longer contain herself. 10,000 years? You expect humanity to accept economic slavery for 10,000 years before seeing a minor reduction in tribute. We expect humanity to accept reality, Draxian said. His form pulsed with what might have been irritation. Time scale is relative. To the elder species of the GCA, 10,000 years is a reasonable probationary period. Your lifespan limitations are not our concern. The meeting continued for 6 more hours, but nothing changed. Draxian and his delegation refused to negotiate. They answered questions with the patience of teachers explaining basic concepts to slow students. The terms were non-negotiable. The deadline was absolute. Humanity would accept or humanity would be corrected. There were no other options. When the aliens finally left, Dr. Tanaka, Professor Whitmore, and General Rodriguez sat in silence for long minutes. Captain Morrison brought them coffee, and they drank it without tasting anything. The weight of what they had just experienced pressed down on all of them. They've done this 400 times, Whitmore said quietly. 400 different species have heard these same demands, and every single one of them accepted. Because the alternative is extinction, Rodriguez added. They're not bluffing about the enforcement fleets. Our intelligence suggests they have over 10,000 warships scattered across their territory. Against that, our 192 vessels wouldn't last a day. Dr. Tanaka stared out the viewport of the alien fleet, hanging in space like a threat made visible. We need to take this to Earth. The people deserve to know everything. No secrets. No comfortable lies. If we're going to make a decision about humanity's future, everyone gets a voice. The news spread across human space with the speed of light-speed communication. Within 24 hours, every person on every human world knew about the GCA and their demands. The government released the full terms without any editing or interpretation. People could read exactly what was being asked of them. The reaction was complex and immediate. Fear swept through populations that had never imagined such a threat. Parents held children and wondered what kind of future they would inherit. Colony administrators ran calculations and realized that paying 85% tribute would mean poverty and starvation for millions. Scientists mourned the loss of technological independence. Military officers began planning for a war they knew they could not win. But beneath the fear, something else began to grow. Something quiet and stubborn and very human. In homes and offices, in schools and factories, in ships traveling between the stars, people started having conversations. They talked about history. They remembered times when their ancestors had faced impossible choices. They discussed what it meant to be human. Emergency sessions convened in government buildings on Earth and every colony. The United Earth Parliament met in continuous session for 72 hours. Representatives debated with fierce passion. Some argued for acceptance, pointing to the overwhelming power of the GCA and the need to ensure human survival. Others called for resistance, insisting that life under such terms would not be worth living. Meanwhile, human intelligence services worked around the clock. For years, they've been quietly monitoring alien communications and gathering information. Now they pulled together everything they knew about the Galactic Commerce Authority. What they discovered painted a disturbing picture. The GCA was not a benevolent organization maintaining galactic peace. It was an economic empire built on systematic exploitation. The 400 integrated species existed in a state of perpetual poverty, working constantly to meet tribute demands that never decreased. The elder species that formed the GCA's core leadership hoarded wealth and technology, while keeping everyone else trapped in cycles of debt and dependency. Most revealing were the intercepts that showed how the system maintained itself. The GCA had not fought a serious war in 20,000 years. They won through intimidation and the careful cultivation of hopelessness. Species surrendered because they believed surrender was inevitable. The moment a civilization accepted the first tribute payment, they entered a system designed to prevent escape. Resources flowed upward, power concentrated in fewer hands. And everyone learned that resistance was impossible. Professor Whitmore presented his analysis to the Parliament on the 5th day of deliberations. The GCA's greatest weapon is not their fleet. It's the belief that they cannot be challenged. 400 species have accepted these terms, and each acceptance reinforces the idea that acceptance is the only option. They've created a self-perpetuating system of control that runs on fear and resignation. He paused and looked around the packed chamber. But it's a fragile system. It only works as long as no one questions it. The moment someone refuses, the moment someone demonstrates that resistance is possible, the entire structure becomes vulnerable. The debate continued for another week. Economists calculated how long humanity could survive under GCA terms. Military strategists developed scenarios for defensive operations against overwhelming force. Diplomats explored whether any other species might support humanity's position. Engineers designed new weapons and defensive systems that might give humans an advantage despite their numerical disadvantage. On day 15, a proposal emerged from an unexpected source. A group of civilian volunteers, including teachers, artists, and ordinary citizens, drafted a document they called the Human Response. It was not a military plan or an economic analysis. It was a statement of principles about who humans were and what they valued. The document spread across human space like wildfire. People read it and felt something shift inside them. It spoke to deep beliefs about dignity and freedom. It acknowledged the risks of resistance while arguing that some things mattered more than survival. It reminded humans that their ancestors had faced extinction event before and had always chosen to fight rather than surrender. Dr. Tanaka read the human response 3 times and felt tears in her eyes. She realized that the decision had already been made, not by politicians or military leaders, but by ordinary people who had looked at the GCA's terms and found them unacceptable. Her role now was to give voice to what humanity had already chosen. The vote came on day 23. Every human government participated. Every colony cast ballots. The results were transmitted across space and compiled in real time. When the final count appeared, the chamber fell silent. 94% of humanity had voted to reject the GCA's terms. They would not pay tribute. They would not accept overseers. They would not limit their fleet or surrender their independence. Humanity would stand free or humanity would fall. But humanity would not kneel. General Rodriguez received authorization to begin military preparations. Admiral Chun, commander of the fleet's tactical division, began positioning ships at strategic locations. Scientists accelerated research into new weapon systems. Factories converted to wartime production. Civilian volunteers trained for defense operations on their homeworlds. But the most important work fell to Dr. Tanaka and her team. They would craft humanity's official response to the GCA. This message would not just reject the terms. It would explain why. It would speak to the 400 species living under GCA control. It would offer them something they had not known in millennia: hope. Dr. Tanaka worked on the message for 7 days, writing and rewriting until every word felt right. She consulted with philosophers and poets, with soldiers and students, with people from every background and culture. The message had to speak for all of humanity, while remaining simple enough that anyone could understand it. On day 35 of the 90-day deadline, the message was complete. Dr. Tanaka reviewed it one final time and felt the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. Tomorrow, she would deliver this message to the galaxy. Tomorrow, everything would change. She walked to her window and looked out at Earth hanging in space below the station. The blue and green world where humanity had been born, the world that had nurtured them through ice ages and plagues, through wars and disasters, through every challenge that existence had thrown at them. Humans had survived because they refused to accept that survival was impossible. Now they would test that stubborn refusal against the most powerful force in the known galaxy. The odds were terrible. The risks were existential. But the alternative was unthinkable. Dr. Tanaka placed her hand against the cool glass and made a silent promise to everyone watching below. Whatever happened next, humanity would face it with dignity. They would show the galaxy what humans truly were. Not a species that could be intimidated into submission. Not a civilization that would trade freedom for survival. But a people who believed that some principles were worth defending no matter the cost. Tomorrow, the galaxy would hear humanity's answer. And nothing would ever be the same. The answer that shook the galaxy. Day 89 arrived with Earth turning slowly beneath its blanket of clouds. On Space Station Delta 7, Dr. Keiko Tanaka stood before a mirror and adjusted her dark suit one final time. Her hands trembled slightly, but her eyes held steady resolve. In 3 hours, she would deliver humanity's response to the Galactic Commerce Authority. In 3 hours, she would either save her species or condemn it to extinction. Captain Morrison entered her quarters without knocking. They had become close friends over the past weeks, bound together by the gravity of what was happening. He carried 2 cups of coffee and offered her one with a slight smile. "The entire galaxy is watching," he said quietly. "We've detected over 10,000 monitoring signals. Every species in GCA space has tuned in to see what happens. Some are probably hoping we surrender so they can feel less alone in their submission. Others are hoping we resist so they can finally see someone stand up." Dr. Tanaka sipped her coffee and felt the warmth spread through her chest. "Then we should give them something worth watching." The communication chamber had been prepared with meticulous care. Camera drones floated in precise positions. The lighting had been adjusted to present Dr. Tanaka clearly without shadows or distortion. Behind her, through a massive viewport, Earth dominated a view. The symbolism was intentional. Humanity would deliver this message from their homeworld. showing exactly what they were defending. Overseer Draxian arrived exactly on schedule. His crystalline form pulsed with confident authority as he entered the chamber. Behind him came a smaller delegation than before, only 3 representatives. He had not expected to need witnesses for what should be a simple formality. Dr. Tanaka, Draxian said, his translated voice carrying satisfaction. You have used your time wisely, I trust. 90 days was generous for a species to come to terms with reality. I have brought the formal integration documents. Once your government signs them, we can begin the assessment process for your first tribute payment. Dr. Tanaka met his gaze without flinching. Before we proceed, I would like to deliver humanity's response in a formal manner. We have prepared a statement that we wish to broadcast across GCA communication networks. Draxian's form flickered with what might have been amusement. A statement? This is unusual, but acceptable. Many species wish to make speeches when they accept integration. It helps them maintain dignity during a difficult transition. Proceed. This broadcast will reach across all GCA space, Dr. Tanaka continued. I thought you would want other species to witness how graciously we conduct ourselves. This pleased the overseer. A public display of human submission would serve as a useful reminder to any potentially troublesome species. Indeed, let your words reach far. Let all see how wise your people have become. Dr. Tanaka touched the control on her wrist. Across the galaxy, on thousands of worlds, receivers activated. Screens flickered to life. The signal cut through regular broadcasts with emergency priority codes. Beings of 100 different species stopped their daily activities and watched as a human woman appeared before them. I am Dr. Keiko Tanaka, speaking on behalf of the United Earth Federation and all human colonies, she began. Her voice was steady and clear. This message is addressed to the Galactic Commerce Authority and to every species living under their governance. What I say now, I say with the full support of my people. She paused for just a heartbeat, then continued. 89 days ago, Overseer Draxian of the GCA presented humanity with terms for integration into what they call the established galactic order. We were told to surrender 85% of our resources. We were told to share our technology while receiving nothing in return. We were told to restrict our military to a number that would leave us defenseless. We were told to accept foreign overseers on our worlds. We were told to pay tribute that would cripple our economy for generations. Draxian stood perfectly motionless. Something in Dr. Tanaka's tone was beginning to disturb him, though he could not yet identify why. We were told these terms were generous, Dr. Tanaka said. We were told that every species accepts because the alternative is destruction. We were told that resistance is impossible and has been impossible for 20,000 years. We were told to accept reality and bow before powers greater than ourselves. She stepped forward, and the cameras captured the intensity in her eyes. We have reviewed your terms carefully. We have consulted our governments, our military, our scientists, and most importantly, our people. We have examined every aspect of what you demand and considered all possible consequences of our response. The moment stretched. On worlds across the galaxy, billions of beings leaned forward, hardly breathing. Humanity rejects your terms, Dr. Tanaka said. Each word landed like a hammer blow. We reject them completely and without reservation. We will not pay tribute. We will not surrender our resources. We will not accept overseers. We will not limit our fleet. We will not become another species trapped in your system of economic slavery. Draxian's crystalline body darkened to nearly black. What did you say? Dr. Tanaka ignored him. Her attention focused on the cameras and the billions watching. We reject your terms because they are not integration. They are subjugation. They are theft dressed in the language of law. They are chains disguised as partnership. You claim to maintain galactic stability, but you maintain only your own power and wealth. You claim to prevent wars, but you wage economic warfare against every species too weak to resist you. Her voice grew stronger. For 50,000 years, you have built an empire on fear and hopelessness. You have convinced species after species that submission is inevitable. You have created a system where accepting the first tribute payment traps civilizations in perpetual debt and dependency. You have hoarded technology and resources while keeping hundreds of species in poverty. And you have done all this while calling it order and stability and progress. She paused, then spoke words that would echo across the galaxy for centuries. Humanity will not participate in this system. We choose freedom over survival. We choose dignity over security. We choose to stand for what we believe is right, even if standing means falling, because some things matter more than continued existence. The right to self-determination matters. The ability to shape our own future matters. The refusal to enable injustice through our compliance matters. Draxian found his voice, and it shook with fury. You are condemning your species to extinction. We will assemble an enforcement fleet that will turn your worlds to ash. Your children will curse your name. Dr. Tanaka finally turned to look at him directly. Perhaps you will destroy us. We understand this risk. We accept it. But if you do, you will show every species in this galaxy exactly what the GCA truly is. An empire built on violence and fear. An empire that can only exist as long as no one questions it. An empire that murders those who dare to choose differently. She turned back to the cameras. But this message is not just for the GCA. It is for all of you watching. All the species who have paid tribute for generations. All the civilizations trapped in this system. All of you who accepted these terms because you believed you had no other choice. Her voice filled with something that sounded like hope breaking through darkness. You have a choice. You have always had a choice. The GCA's power exists only because we grant it to them through our obedience. They rule through intimidation, but intimidation only works on those who choose to be intimidated. She spread her hands wide, a gesture of offering. Humanity extends this invitation to any species that wishes to join us. Earth will accept refugees who seek shelter. We will trade with any civilization that wishes to trade as equals. We will stand beside any species that chooses to stand for itself. We will share our technology freely with those who share in return. We will defend those who cannot defend themselves. The words came faster now, driven by passion and conviction. The age of automatic submission is ending. The galaxy does not belong to the ancient empires who claim ownership through tradition and force. It belongs to all of us equally. Every species deserves the right to determine its own path. Every civilization deserves to keep the fruits of its labor. Every sentient being deserves to live free from economic slavery. Dr. Tanaka's voice dropped to something quieter, but no less powerful. We are humanity. We are a young species by galactic standards. We have been traveling the stars for less than a century. We possess no ancient weapons. We control no vast territories. We have only our principles and our refusal to abandon them. But our history has taught us that principles matter, that standing for what is right matters, even when the cost is terrible. She looked directly into the camera, speaking now to every being watching across the galaxy. Our ancestors survived ice ages that should have killed them. They endured plagues that decimated their populations. They faced weapons capable of destroying their entire world. They survived because they refused to accept that survival was impossible. They survived because when the universe told them something could not be done, they did it anyway. Her next words became a challenge that rang across space itself. So come for us if you must, Galactic Commerce Authority. Send your enforcement fleets. Attempt to make us submit through violence, since you cannot achieve submission through intimidation. But know this, you will be fighting a species that does not understand the word surrender. You will be fighting a people who believe that freedom is worth any price. And win or lose, you will teach every species watching that the GCA maintains its power through force and murder. She straightened her shoulders. Or you can accept that your time of unquestioned dominance is ending. You can acknowledge that a new age is beginning. An age where species cooperate as equals rather than as masters and subjects. An age where trade is mutual benefit rather than exploitation. An age where the galaxy belongs to all its inhabitants, not just the oldest and strongest. Dr. Tanaka's final words carried the weight of history and the hope of billions. To the GCA, we say this. Your terms are rejected. To everyone else, we say this. The door is open. Choose your future. Choose freedom. Choose dignity. choose to believe that change is possible because we are making it possible right now, today, in this moment. The first step is always the hardest. We are taking that step. Walk with us. The broadcast ended. Silence filled the chamber like a physical presence. Overseer Draxian stared at the human diplomat with an expression that mixed disbelief, rage, and something that might have been fear. In 900 years of existence, he had never experienced anything like this. Species begged, species negotiated, species wept and pleaded for mercy. They did not stand before the assembled might of the galactic order and issue challenges. "You have murdered your species," he said finally. His voice carried venom and absolute certainty. "I will personally command an enforcement fleet that reduces your worlds to radioactive dust. I will ensure that no human survives to remember what you have done here. Your name will become a lesson taught to every species. This is what happens to those who defy the natural order." Dr. Tanaka met his gaze without wavering. "Then do what you must, Overseer. We will do what we must. History will judge which of us chose correctly." Draxian turned and swept from the chamber. His delegation followed in stunned silence. Within minutes, their shuttle had detached and raced back toward their fleet. The massive alien vessels began moving, preparing for the journey to GCA space where the enforcement fleet would assemble. Captain Morrison approached Dr. Tanaka and placed a hand on her shoulder. She was trembling now, the adrenaline of the moment finally catching up to her. "You did it," he said softly. "You gave them everything we discussed and more. That was the bravest thing I have ever witnessed." Dr. Tanaka shook her head. "Brave will be facing what comes next with confidence." "I am terrified, David. I just condemned billions of people to potential extinction. What if I was wrong? What if we should have accepted their terms and lived to fight another day?" "You gave the galaxy hope," Morrison replied. "Look at the incoming signals." The communication board was lighting up like a Christmas tree. Messages flooded in from across GCA space. Some were threats from GCA loyalists, but others were different. They came from species Dr. Tanaka had never heard of, from worlds she could not pronounce, from beings whose appearance she could not imagine. One message came from a species called the Zerith, miners on a world called Kilos 9. "We have paid tribute for 8,000 years. We watched your broadcast. Tomorrow we stop mining. Thank you for showing us that choice exists." Another came from the Solari, aquatic beings who built ships for the GCA Navy. "We have constructed vessels for masters who use them to enslave others. We will build no more. You have given us courage we thought we had lost." Message after message arrived. 23 species made direct contact with humanity, asking about asylum and alliance. Dozens more sent anonymous notes of support, afraid to reveal themselves but desperate to express gratitude that someone had finally stood up. And then came a message that changed everything. It came from a species called the Archivists, beings who had existed for over 100,000 years. They were librarians and historians, keepers of knowledge that predated the GCA itself. "We have watched the Galactic Commerce Authority grow from a small trade federation into an empire of exploitation." Their message read, "We have documented every abuse, every injustice, every species crushed beneath their system. We have waited for someone to challenge them. We choose to stand with humanity. We offer our knowledge and our resources. The data we provide will help you prepare for what comes next." The Archivist data package arrived 3 hours later. It was enormous, containing detailed information about GCA military operations, fleet compositions, command structures, and strategic weaknesses. Human intelligence officers spent 72 hours analyzing it and emerged with expressions of cautious optimism. General Rodriguez presented the findings to the War Council. The GCA is assembling an enforcement fleet of 2,500 warships from 12 species. It's the largest military action they have undertaken in 20,000 years. They will arrive at human space within 40 days. She paused, then continued with a hint of satisfaction. "But the Archivists have given us something invaluable. The GCA fleet has never fought a real war. Their tactics are ceremonial, designed for intimidation rather than combat effectiveness. Their command structure is fragmented because different species maintain their own communication systems. And most importantly, many of the species contributing ships resent the GCA deeply. They participate in enforcement actions because they believe they have no choice. Admiral Chen leaned forward. So we target the command structure and psychological cohesion rather than try and destroy ships? Exactly, Rodriguez confirmed. We cannot win a war of attrition, but we might win a war of belief. If we can show the non-GCA species in that fleet that resistance is possible, if we can demonstrate that the GCA is not invincible, the enforcement fleet might collapse from within. Preparations began immediately. Human ships moved into defensive positions at a location called the Terminus Gate, a narrow passage where the GCA fleet would have to emerge from faster-than-light travel. Engineers worked around the clock to deploy sensor networks and weapons platforms. Civilian volunteers trained for evacuation procedures in case the defenses failed. On Earth and every colony, people prepared for war. They were afraid, but they were also determined. They had made a choice as a species, and they would see it through to whatever end awaited them. Parents told children stories about their ancestors who had faced impossible odds. Teachers explained the principles that humanity was defending, and in the quiet moments, people prayed to whatever gods they believed in, asking for strength and courage. 37 days after Dr. Tanaka's broadcast, human sensors detected the GCA enforcement fleet emerging from faster-than-light travel. 2,500 warships spread across space like a wall of destruction. They outnumbered the human fleet by more than 10 to 1. Every ship carried crews who believed they had come to witness an execution. But the galaxy was watching. On thousands of worlds, beings tuned in to see what would happen when an ancient empire met a species that refused to kneel. Some expected humanity to surrender at the last moment. Others hoped desperately that the humans would stand firm. Everyone understood that what happened in the next hours would determine the future of galactic civilization. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of a UEF flagship Defiant and watched the enemy fleet approach. She was 60 years old and had spent her entire adult life in military service. She had never expected to command humanity's last stand, but if this was her final mission, she would make it count. All ships, she transmitted across the human fleet. Remember what we are fighting for. Remember who is watching. Remember that courage is contagious. Show them what humans can do. The GCA fleet transmitted a final demand for surrender. Admiral Chen's response was simple and final. Humanity declines. Come and take us if you can. The Battle of Terminus Gate began, and the galaxy held its breath.